Boom 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 boom.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really embarking on a fascinating journey right into the heart of storytelling.
Yeah, and we're using a great guide, Robert McKee.
Yep.
Probably one of the most influential voices out there on the craft.
Exactly. We're pulling insights from his seminal work, Story, and looking specifically at his ideas on the essence of story and, crucially, the inciting incident. You know how some stories just grab you right from the start? They pull you into their world and, you just forget everything else.
Absolutely.
So we're going to unpack the sort of foundational principles that make those narratives so incredibly powerful.
And also, why some things that happen, even really dramatic things, just don't quite cut it as a story in McKee's view.
Right. It's like getting a shortcut to the DNA of what makes a story really work.
Yeah, and what's so illuminating about McKee is how he just strips away all the superficial stuff.
Yeah.
Genre, setting, specific plot points.
He gets underneath it all.
He does. He reveals these fundamental building blocks, the things that consistently move us, engage us. We're not just looking at what happens, but really why it matters.
And how these structures work across time, across cultures.
Exactly. So for you listening, this means getting a really powerful lens, not just for Silman books, but like for the narrative shaping your everyday life too, even your own experiences.
Okay, so let's unpack that core idea first. McKee is super clear on this. Stories aren't about following, popular formulas or the template of the month.
No, definitely not.
He argues there are these much deeper structures, universal, timeless, almost like the hidden architecture inside a building.
That's a great analogy. Regardless of the outside look, the facade.
Yeah. I think about, say, The Lion King,
Yeah.
animated musical, right? Coming of age. And then you have Die Hard, gritty action thriller. On the surface, they couldn't seem more different.
Total different world.
But McKee would say, well, the underlying principles, character arc, conflict, how it resolves the actual scaffolding of the narrative, it shares really similar patterns.
It's not about the lions or the explosions, fundamentally.
Well, it's about the human experience they're reflecting somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the profound insight, really. The real artistry and, frankly, the challenge for anyone telling a story is getting hold of this fundamental skeleton, this narrative form.
It's not just the summary you could write.
No, it's the deep structure, the thing that lets it resonate emotionally, intellectually. Which brings us to a really critical question.
Yeah, which is?
What exactly elevates just a sequence of events, things happening, into a true story event?
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction he makes. He says just having things happen, even dramatic things, isn't quite enough for it to be a story event.
Right.
He gives this really powerful example. Imagine a terrible drought plaguing a village in Africa, immense suffering.
Awful situation.
And then suddenly, rain comes, torrential rain breaks the drought. Now, that's hugely impactful, right? A massive relief.
Of course.
But McKee argues, on its own, that's not a story event.
And why not? That's the interesting part. As he explains it, it remains sort of coincidental. It's nature doing its thing.
It wasn't driven by a character struggling against something.
Precisely. It doesn't fundamentally transform a central value in someone's life through their struggle, through conflict they're involved in. For it to be a true story event, some fundamental value.
Like what? Freedom, safety.
Yeah, or their understanding of the world, their life, their death. Something core has to undergo a significant, meaningful change.
Yeah.
And critically, this change almost always comes out of conflict. The conflict that the character is right in the middle of.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. And maybe a bit controversial. McKee famously dismisses that excuse, but it really happened.
Oh, yeah. He calls it the weakest possible defense for a story.
It's such a common trap, though, isn't it? Thinking, well, it happened in real life, so it must be a good story.
It is. And his point forces you to grapple with this sharp distinction he makes between fact and truth.
How does he define those?
Well, facts, for him, are just raw data, things that occurred, events in the world.
Okay.
But truth, in storytelling terms, is the meaning, the interpretation an author brings to those facts.
Oh.
Think about Joan of Arc, the historical person. The facts of her life born here had visions, thought battles, trial, execution. Those are mostly known.
Right, the historical record.
But one writer might show her as a spiritual saint. Another might focus on her being this witty, politically sharp young leader.
Or maybe a victim of religious fanaticism.
Exactly. They all start with the same basic historical events, the same facts, but they construct entirely different truths about her life, her meaning, her significance.
Got it. So the story isn't a photocopy of life.
No, not at all. It's a meaningful reflection of it. It needs the writer to actively load meaning onto an event.
To create that deliberate change along a, what do you call it? A value axis.
Yeah, a value axis, like moving from innocence to, say, bitter experience, or from being trapped to being free, certainty to doubt.
So it's not just presenting reality as it is.
No, it's often presenting it as it could be, or should be maybe, in a way that reveals something deeper about us, about human patterns. It's why you can watch a historical film and feel like you get the truth of that time, even if not every single detail is, factually perfect.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it really boils down to this fundamental value change in the character's world.
That's the core.
Shifts like good to evil, life to death, justice to injustice, love to hate, peace to chaos.
Knowledge to ignorance.
Yeah.
All those big polar opposites.
Exactly. And the more striking that change is, especially if it's driven by intense conflict, the stronger the story feels, the more compelling it is.
Okay, let's go back to the Up example, that opening. Legendary, right?
Absolutely. 5 minutes. And we see Carl and Ellie's entire lives, their dreams, falling in love, building a home, the quiet joys, but also the losses.
The shared commitment, and then Carl's grief.
Yeah. And there's this rapid, constant value change happening. You're swinging between hope and despair, joy and loneliness, life and death. It's relentless.
It is. It's a masterclass.
It really is.
And that example just nails it. That intense, concentrated value shift pulls you right in. And there's hardly any dialogue.
No, it's all visual.
And it's not just showing you a montage. It's carefully orchestrating these emotional transformations along those value axes. It shows the raw power of making us experience these deep human changes.
It's McKee's point, perfectly shown. How to make an audience instantly, profoundly care about a character.
By revealing those fundamental shifts in their life, their existence, you don't just know what happened. You feel like you know how it felt.
That makes perfect sense. So if the essence is this value shift, what actually starts it? What's the trigger?
Ah, good question.
That initial spark, right? The thing that disrupts their normal life, their balance, and pushes them onto a new path. Often a dangerous one.
That's it. You're talking about McKee's inciting incident.
Knew it had to be that.
You absolutely hit on the next critical piece. The inciting incident is precisely that event. It's the moment that just irrevocably alters the balance of power in the character's life.
Throws their world out of whack.
Completely out of equilibrium, whether that change is internal, like a sudden realization, or external, like someone showing up. It doesn't matter. It's the first domino.
The one that starts the whole chain reaction of the plot.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be negative, although it often is. The wife leaving in Kramer versus Kramer. Pretty clear disruption there.
Yeah, definitely negative for him.
But it could also seem positive initially, like inheriting a fortune, winning the lottery, getting some amazing opportunity.
But the key thing is?
The key is that it knocks the character's life off its familiar path. It forces them to act. It usually establishes their main goal, and bam, there's your central conflict.
Then it can come from inside or outside, right? Like the character decides something.
Yes, it can be triggered by their own decision. Like you mentioned, Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas deciding to drink himself to death. That decision is the inciting incident for his journey.
Or it can just happen to them out of the blue. Like the husband dying suddenly and Alice doesn't live here anymore.
Right. Both immediately force this profound shift, this reorientation for the main character. Life changes instantly.
So, okay, if we need a really clear example of that kind of shift, where would we see it? What about, Toy Story?
Well,
Andy gets Buzz Lightyear for his birthday. That feels like a perfect inciting incident, doesn't it?
why do you say that?
Well, because up until that exact moment, Woody is number one. Andy's favorite, undisputed.
Okay.
Then Buzz arrives, and instantly, Woody's whole world, his status, his sense of purpose, everything is shaken up, challenged,
Final example. Yes, absolutely. Buzz's arrival is perfect.
Yeah.
It's not just adding a new toy to the mix.
No, it overturns everything for Woody.
It overturns the status quo. It forces Woody to face his biggest fear of being replaced. And that kicks off the main conflict.
He has to do something, fight for his place.
Right. It sets him on this whole new path, this whole new trajectory. It clearly lays out the story's core dilemma. Will Woody accept this new reality, or will he fight it? And we know how that goes. Chaos, adventure.
Yeah. So what about timing? Does it always happen right at the beginning?
Well, McKee emphasizes that generally it happens relatively early, often, within the first quarter of the story, maybe the first 10, 15 minutes of a movie,
And why so early?
because it lets you, the audience, get it straight away. You understand what's at stake, you connect with the character's problem, their predicament, and you're ready to go on that journey with them.
You know the what-ifs right from the start.
Exactly. It pulls you into the tension. Although an interesting point McKee makes is that even if a story opens with big action, the real inciting incident might actually be a quieter moment just before or after, the thing that irrevocably changes the character's inner world and sets them towards that action.
Huh. But sometimes it definitely happens later, doesn't it? Like the movie goes on for a bit, you get settled into the character's world, their routine.
And then bam,
Yeah.
the big event hits and throws everything sideways.
That's a really keen observation, and yes, absolutely true. Rocky is the classic example, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
We spend quite a bit of time just seeing Rocky's life in Philly. The small-time fights, his awkwardness with Adrian, working for the loan shark. It's pretty mundane.
Building the character, the world.
Right. And the main inciting incident, that totally improbable offer to fight Apollo Creed, the champ that comes much later in the first act. Closer to, what, the 30-minute mark?
Yeah, it takes a while.
The script deliberately builds that character and atmosphere before the main plot engine really kicks into high gear.
So how does that work? How do you keep the audience hooked if the main thing hasn't happened yet?
Well, in cases like Rocky, where the main incident is delayed, writers often use subplots or strong character development to keep you engaged.
Like Rocky's relationship with Adrian. Exactly like his relationship with Adrian. That keeps you deeply invested until the pivotal plot point arrives. But just because it arrives later doesn't make it less important.
If anything, it feels bigger, maybe.
Often it does. It frequently functions as this huge climax for the first act. It forcefully pushes the story onto its main track. It's a point of no return.
The moment their world can never go back.
Precisely. And it does something else crucial, too. It creates an expectation in the audience. It builds anticipation for that big showdown later on.
The fight, in Rocky's case.
The fight. What McKee calls the obligatory scene. That scene the audience feels they were promised by the inciting incident, the one they need to see, usually where the hero faces their biggest test before the end.
So that first domino falling.
Yeah, that first falling domino, the inciting incident, is like a profound hint, a harbinger that the final domino, that big confrontation, is also going to fall. It promises a whole transformative journey for the character and, for us watching.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really fantastic deep dive. Seriously eliminating.
It's powerful stuff.
So just a recap for you listening. At the absolute core, the heart of every really compelling story, according to Robert McKee, is a meaningful, irreversible value change in the character's world.
Can't go back.
Right. And that big change gets kicked off by a very clear, often really impactful event, the inciting incident. That's what upsets the balance of their life. These two things, the essence of story being that value shift, and the catalyst being the inciting incident, they're like the bedrock. The foundation for basically every narrative that really grabs us. Blockbuster movie, quiet novel, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe next time you watch a film or read a book or even just hear someone tell a really good anecdote, ask yourself, what was that specific inciting incident?
The thing that shook up their life, disrupted their equilibrium.
Exactly. And then think on which fundamental human values, like it was about justice, love, survival, identity, truth, on which of those values did this event create a shift, a storm? Because understanding these building blocks, it's not just for writers, like we said. It's a really powerful tool for you to grasp the magic of stories better.
To analyze why some just hit harder than others, why some resonate and some just fall flat.
Yeah. And maybe, perhaps this whole lens offers an interesting way to look back at the big turning points, those unexpected inciting incidents in your own life.
Oh, interesting.
And the value shifts they kicked off for you. Just a thought to leave you with. What's one unexpected inciting incident from your own experience that, looking back, you realize completely shifted your personal path?
Boom, 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 boom.